Welcome to Weird Web Radio, an explorer's guide to hidden worlds of the paranormal and occult, reality-expanding experiences, and the downright weird and bizarre. With your host, Lonnie Scott.
Oh, we're recording. Uh-oh, no. Charles Harrington, welcome to Weird Web Radio. It is fantastic to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be here.
I appreciate that. So, for folks that don't know you, is the bio on the back of this one good?
Yeah, that's a good one. That's it.
Yeah. When people can't see this, I held up the latest edition of the Dummies series called Tarot and Oracle Card Reading, and our very own Charles Harrington is the author of this. It is actually an excellent book, but we'll get into that. Please don't judge it as a For Dummies book. Go get it. I'm thinking that of all the like 90s, if you grew up through the 90s like I did, you saw a ton of these things.
I have a strong love for Dummies, and we can get into all of that.
Yeah, we'll get into that. Charles Harrington has been reading, teaching, and loving tarot for more than 25 years. He's written several deck guidebooks and given keynotes and workshops at conferences, hosted podcasts, and led meetups in the San Francisco Bay Area. He loves to find new and strange ways to use the cards, me too, in pursuit of wisdom, fun, and the occasional free cocktails. I'm doing it wrong. And Charles is also an initiate of the Order of the Sacred Grove Witchcraft tradition. Fantastic. All right, that's it. See you, buddy. No.
Just nice.
Yeah. First thing I like to get into before we get into all the other tarot and witchy stuff. Have you ever experienced a haunting or anything that we may consider paranormal phenomena?
Yeah. So I have two quick answers for this. One's like a normal. Well, yeah. I mean, I guess. I have like a normal people one and a tarot one. The normal one, I was working at a metaphysical bookstore in college, and one morning I'm walking down the aisle. The store had just opened. It's like 9 a.m. and a gentleman, he was wearing a gray suit, I think, and had a bald head, and was walking down the one aisle, and I'm walking past him, and as I walk past him, I turn on my heel because I am very quick with customer service and like, hello, let me know if I can help you find anything, in one breath. And he wasn't there, and it was strange, and I kept thinking, like, did I hallucinate that? And maybe I did, but it just didn't feel like a ghost moment. At that time, I didn't really know anything about ghosts, and so I thought he wasn't transparent. He didn't, attack me. There was no ectoplasm. And later on, looking into it, like, oh, okay, that all came because of stage special effects during the 1800s, where we got the transparent ghosts. Then other people can talk about that. But I knew that the store had been a law firm before. I knew that, and so I'm assuming it was a lawyer who was still there, or like an imprint. I am not a super ghost expert, so maybe it's like a psychic imprint of a lawyer, but that was like there and gone. And I thought that was my one ghost encounter. That's my normal people one. My tarot one, I was reading tarot at the Oakland Vampires Ball, which is an awesome thing to do.
That sounds like a thing.
It is. Like, I love event reading, and I love event reading at vampire events.
Mm-hmm.
And a young woman sat down across from me, and most people's question is like career, general future, that kind of thing. And her question, her father and uncle had both died a month apart that year, and like, could I do anything with that? Now, like, okay, now I do not have like what I would consider like a mediumship gift, in that I do not hear from spirits or hear the dead. But I've played with tarot cards for contacting them, so I had this like little spread that I would sort of do, but I was never quite sure like how useful that spread was at connecting with the beloved dead. So and the spread, for listeners, if you ever want to try it, is the first card is something about the spirit, the person's actual death. I feel like this is a bit of a buy-in for the person you're talking to, that this really is the person, you know? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
so that's the important their death. The second card in this 3-card spread is their current state, and the third card is their advice for you. Take it if you want to. So, father and uncle, I had 2 decks with me because event reading, and so I used 2 different decks. And what was fascinating was that first card, which is the person's death. Her father had strength reversed, which very easy in this moment. I got to say, I feels like your father was the kind of guy who always, you know, had to have a firm control of self, firm control of things, and this death allowed him to let go, you know. And I turn over the uncle's card, and it's strength upright, and I'm like, crap, like. And okay, I think I know what that means. But and there's if you ever read for the public, especially if you're doing quick readings at events, there's this little moral quandary that happens of like, how honest am I? And like they came for the
Mm-hmm.
cards, you know. So I said, you know, I said, like, well, as strength upright would suggest that your uncle's death was him taking control of the situation. And she said, yes, he was committed suicide. And I'm like, that's what I thought. And the rest of the
Yeah.
reading was fascinating and interesting. But there was just this like moment of like, those were like the perfect. Tarot's funny. The tarot math is that every card has a 2.5% chance of being drawn, and actual mathematicians can tell you how likely things are. But it was just a really kind of fun, creepy moment for both of us that
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, like this seems to have worked. So that's my 2 versions of that tarot paranormal question.
I like it. The the whole mediumship kind of thing with tarot, I've been asked to do stuff like that, and I've always kind of said no, because I just, like, with all due respect to people who think they're mediums, I remain unconvinced. I have
Hmm.
not met anyone who's convinced me yet, and
Hmm.
this is not a challenge, and
Right
I'm
on.
not I'm not insulting any of you. I
Yeah,
promise. It's just that maybe I'm just harder to convince on that one. That's one of my own little things. I can't seem to get over that hill.
fair.
I don't know what would convince me, but I've had an experience with cards and a client that makes me think it's certainly possible. Because someone came to me who had a twin who had died
Mm.
and was adamant that they had to contact. Finally, I said, you know, we can draw the cards and just see what comes up. I'm not promising you anything. This is not what I do, you know,
Yeah.
and I'm just going off just instinct here. And I was like, do you have anything of your sister's? And she's like, yeah, I've got some of her ashes in this ring, and hands me the ring. I was like,
Wow.
oh, yeah.
That'll
So
work.
I was like, that'll do.
That'll do.
And so I placed that down on my reading cloth, and then I'm not sure what deck I want to use. You know, we're in my house at the time, so I grabbed the Wild Unknown, thinking there's no human symbolism in here. It's all raw. You know, it's all animal and more animistic.
Mm.
So I'm thinking we don't get. What I'm really thinking is we don't get the Ten of Swords. That looks grim. We don't get, you know, stuff
Hmm.
like that.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so I have her just, I shuffle the cards and I have her select, you know, where we're going to cut them and draw the cards. I go completely against how I read in every way doing this. Because I don't normally do that either. I touch my cards. You know, I don't let the clients touch my cards, except for this one time. And she draws out 6 cards, and we start flipping them over. And the very first one, she starts crying. Well,
Wow.
why are you upset? Oh, it had a butterfly on it. And she's like, oh, well, my sister had a butterfly. And she shows me the tattoo that she's like, my sister and I both had this tattoo. And then the next card, and then every single card drawn had a meaningful thing that she could point to on her person or in her property in that moment. And I thought, okay, there's something to it.
Absolutely.
I'm not doing this
Absolutely.
professionally, but there's something to it.
Absolutely. But I think very critical in that story. One of the first things you said was like that you began with humility, which is like this is not usually what I do, and so like let's like it was like created an understanding that what we're about to do is kind of an experiment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think readers, we could do that all the time, and that's wonderful. But I think that like that is the opposite of the ego thing that gets readers in trouble, you know,
Yeah.
when they begin
Yeah.
from like the I am the Oracle of Delphi, you know, place.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I might even be guilty of demystifying tarot a little too much sometimes because I'll tell people, there's 78 cards in a deck,
Mhm.
and whether I draw one or all 78 or any combination in between, they will have meaning for you and your situation. I don't know if I'm underselling it that way or not now that I think about it, but
So another event reading moment. We're still in the same like the ghost question, but like this is not a moment, but I was reading at a birthday party. Like, it was like a for a big huge birthday party with like a 1960s theme, and I'm dressed like a Grateful Dead follower in costume that the vendor had provided me with, blah blah blah. And a gentleman sits across from me in a like a nice suit, and I note in tarot and oracle card reading for dummies, I have like a little bias that I think, oh, okay, someone who sits down in a suit probably doesn't believe in tarot, and I've been wrong. But I give the reading, and he like immediately like takes from the deck, and he's like, "What would you have said if it was this card?" And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, I know what's going on. This is the meaning of that card." And he's like, oh, "Okay, what would you have said if it was this card?" Like, this is
oh.
the meaning. And he was like, and he kept, and what I was fascinating was that like he was hoping that kind of what you were describing earlier. He was
Mm-hmm.
hoping that what had happened was what I had described sounded perfectly true because anything I said in a con artist way would sound perfectly true in a cold reading way, and
Mm-hmm.
that it was like a game, and that's what he wanted, right? And then
Right.
he kept saying like, no, the only one that matched was the first card, and I'm like, what do you do? But and I think it's okay to I think we all have to okay, I have to admit to myself that like this could all just be cardboard and pop psychology. We could all just be molecules and chemicals in a universe surrounded by oblivion. But um,
That's not bleak.
these
Yeah.
these moments happen, and it was just a fun moment of like him being like, oh, it's not this in that moment for him. His conclusion was that it wasn't the case that anything I said was going to sound right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's also true. I mean, and that is what I get at sometimes when I'm saying, any combination of these cards, it's going to have meaning for you.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, the ones that are left behind may not.
Mm,
Um, Talking about event like tarot events, I used to do prior to COVID, I would do tarot parties.
mm,
You host the event, invite your friends and whoever as guests. The host always got a free reading. Everyone else, paid,
mhm.
and give me a quiet spot somewhere, et cetera, et cetera. Um, how did you run your events? Were these things that you did, like created yourself, or were you being hired to do these things?
Oh, so I've done kind of all of it, which is great. It's been a lot of fun. So for example, I led tarot meetups in San Francisco that were just totally free and drop in, and you could make a small donation. Things like the vampire ball I mentioned, where I received
Mhm.
a certain amount of money, and then I also accepted tips. But kind of the most fun are if you're someone who would like to do this, what you want to do is connect with event planners and event vendor. So you want to be a vendor for an event planner. So when grad night comes around, grad night's one of the big ones, and their local high school wants 3 tarot readers. They look at their little roster and they call you and they say like, are you available on Saturday the whatever? Those are so fun because um, tarot mainstreaming has been very important in bringing tarot into like a place of respectfulness has been very important, but like the pendulum swings a little too far sometimes. And
Mhm.
when you read at an event, you get to be kind of, and I'm using this word with great affection, you get to be a carny, and that's
Yes.
fun. I have a corporate day job, and I want to get to be a carny, and so it means that like um, you get to like cover the table with stuff, the cloths, crystals, skulls. You get to wear
Mhm.
costume. like weird hats, whatever it is. And that part is fun. And I will also just say that all of that stuff is helpful because it helps create a liminal space
Mm-hmm.
for the both for the querent and the reader. And then uh, when we went really hardcore into mainstreaming of tarot, and we're like, we don't even want spread cloths. We just want, like a flat surface and the tarot cards, and that's it. Um, it's sort of there can be something missing there, and there's a reason that cathedrals were designed to create liminal space, as
Mm-hmm.
are tiki bars. Same principle, you're supposed to like exit the world you were in and enter into this other world. And
Yes.
any of that stuff, even like, so you're at a grad night, like the two doors down there's a cotton candy machine, three doors down, there's like what, karaoke. But here in this moment you have stepped into like the realm of the tarot readers, and
Mm-hmm.
it's cool. It's a cool experience. So okay, so just to recap, like the events like you're describing are really fun, where people can come and get a paid reading. But connecting with vendors is a real great way to do these bigger um, types of things. But also, if there's a local pagan conference near you, if you can hear the sound of my voice, one of the greatest things I ever got to do was at PantheaCon in San Jose, California, had Drunken Divination, which was the plan was the readers sat down with, so they had 6 tables, and if you were a reader, you came in and they were going to bring you drinks for free, and you could just give readings all night. And so that night I read with a copy of tarot, and then a copy of an incredible oracle deck called the Arcane Bullshit Oracle.
I have it.
Um, it's incredible, isn't it?
It's so
But
much fun.
my favorite card might be talking, no, a coffin full of tacos full of snakes. It's a great card. Anyway, so it's okay. The point of that one is like if you're gonna have a party, just get everybody a little bit sideways. Uh the equation I found is 2.5 cocktails is like the perfect amount for my blood alcohol level to give to achieve connection with the divine and still have articulate speech.
I love that. That's so great. Um, oh my God, was it? You might know this. It was Mary Greer or Rachel Pollack. I forget who had this, but it was like a like assume a tarot reader identity, like
It's
a cosplay kind of thing.
Yeah, that's Rachel Pollack's Dr. Apollo's School of Bad Fortune Telling. It was
Yes.
from Reader Studio. And again, listener, you can do this. You need almost nothing. The point is, and I've led this technique at workshops. And in a future tarot, Llewellyn tarot calendar, this technique will be presented, and it's the 2027 tarot calendar. But all you do is you create an identity as a tarot reader. So you can be a deposed Carpathian royalty. You can be um, uh, anything. My favorite was when I led it. She was the goddess of a universe that exists within a single drop of water. That's what
Oh.
she said. And then you come up with like a fun story about how you got your deck. And then you read as that person, and you kind of get into it by like giving kind of like big pronouncements in a fun way. And like it sounds silly and fun, but here's the real juice from that experience is that one thing many readers wish they had more of was confidence. And
Mm-hmm.
one thing that this technique allows you to do is it allows you to read as a confident person. I'm not confident, but like Lord Ravenscroft might be, a
Yeah.
confident reader, or Madame Flamelda, and so that allows you to so the technique, what I would do is I would have people read as these characters, because I secretly want everyone to do more predictive reading, and a lot of people
Mm,
prefer to stay in the comfort zone of advice and self-help, and that's an excellent
sure.
place to be, especially for people who are more atheistic to tarot. That's kind of the only space for that, and that's excellent. But what I would do is I'd have them be these characters and do these readings, and then at the end of the night I'd be like, okay, put the character aside and just read predictively as yourself. And they could do it because they've been practicing all night, doing like sit-ups
Mm-hmm.
and push-ups all night, so that they could actually read with confidence predictively. Does that make
Mm.
sense?
That makes sense. But I think for those listening who may not know what we're talking about whenever we say read predictively versus the advice self-help kind of thing, what do we really mean when we say predictably?
Yeah. So like, let's take a card. Let's say the Three of Pentacles.
Work,
And
work, 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 work. No,
yeah,
sorry.
work, 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 work. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So excellent. So it has, I think most, okay. And I'm going to also clarify it, and I'm going to talk about it within the realm of the Rider-Waite-Smith tradition of tarot. And a lot of decks in the English speaking language follow that. So if you were to um, read predictively, and let's say like I'm doing a past, present, future reading for you, and you
Mm-hmm.
asked me about a conflict that you're having with someone. Here's the difference. The the advice reader, the more self-help reader who does not believe in the power of the cards to predict or doesn't want to do that style of reading, what they're going to say is they're going to use words like should, or you might want to consider, or some things you could do, or Three of Pentacles. You might want to be more collaborative. You might want to um, think about how you can use your specialized gifts to blend with others. You might want to think about what is my role in this dynamic that I have with this other person. Okay, a predictive reader is going to almost that through line, that same energy of what the Three of Pentacles means will still be there, but they're probably going to come to a place more of like, there's going to be an opportunity in the future for you to work with this person, and what might, and it's okay, like that example sounds very like much like kind of the same thing, like, only dogs can hear the difference kind of thing, but it is it's a bigger leap to well, also a predictive reader can get into like, what you need to do in this situation is you should be cooperative and be a cog in the wheel right now, Three
Mm-hmm.
of Pentacles, and be like, think about what your role is and just focus on that. Like, let's just not like really just get into that. That's what's going to serve you. And they can say that because their belief system includes this idea that what they see is how this is going to work out, as opposed to someone who, you know, maybe does not view the universe in that way. Something that in the tarot and oracle card reading for dummies, I felt like I needed to present a not a unified theory, present the different theories for how tarot works. I'm making
Mm-hmm.
bunny fingers works. And I don't know for certain, but here are some of the main ideas. And so one of them, is like, do you believe that the future is predictable or it can be viewed? Do you believe that the present can be viewed? Like, so for a
Mm.
completely atheistic person, the present can't even be viewed with tarot. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and it is one of those. That is a debate that can get kind of heated amongst tarot readers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And
Yeah,
everyone's different.
everyone's
Everyone's
different.
valid. Everyone's
That's right.
special.
Yeah, I think Miss Cleo may have ruined it for a lot of folks wanting to get into the more predictive tarot reading
Well, I
style.
mean, no, if you free read
Y-
and yeah,
That's right.
yeah,
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
end it.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. A little, it's too little scammy feeling, I think, for some
Yeah.
people. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
Um, but give it a try. See how it
Mm-hmm.
works. I think you give that technique a shot. Assuming this other identity is sort of a role playing,
Mm-hmm.
and start slinging cards and see how you approach them differently that way. Yeah. Um. So you brought up vampires,
Mm-hmm.
the vampire event, and you are you the, how's this work with tarot creation? Because I don't know what
Ah,
to call you. Are you creator, co-creator
I'm
of
a
the Tarot
co-creator.
of Vampires deck?
Yeah, I'm a co-creator and I'm the author of Tarot of the Vampires, published by Llewellyn, and I got to create that deck with Craig Marr, who is the author. But here's the unfair distribution of labor, if you think about that. So how, if anyone listening has ever wanted to have a tarot deck, you have an idea for a perfect tarot deck that needs to exist, what you need to do, and you're like, but I'm not an artist, and do not turn to AI. AI is not the
Yeah,
answer
please do
for
not
a
turn to
professional
AI.
product. If you want to make a toy, do what you want, but not for a professional product. if you have a vision for something that could exist, what you want to do is you have to come up with what are the 78 scenes and how is this deck different? How does this differentiate? How is this different from all the other, for my case, I had to think of like, what are the other, how is this different from all the vampire tarots that exist? And there's many, and I love all of them. So mine, I looked upon the field of vampire tarot decks, and I saw that they're all historical vampires. There was all sort of Dracula era, like Victorian, so a little bit earlier, like that sort of fantasy era. And no one had done modern paranormal urban fantasy vampire. I almost said paranormal romance and I stopped myself, but that is the genre. Paranormal romance, like so True Blood, Vampire Diaries, Anne Rice's Vampire Chronicles, that sort of thing. Anyway, blah blah blah. So what I had to do is come up with my whole shtick, like what are the swords, what are the cups, how does that work? And then I had to write every scene. So in the Fool, a young woman is with a lily, apropos of nothing, is in a park and she meets a gentleman in shadows and he offers her a rose. So then Llewellyn, in my case, took that by pitch and they decided that they liked the idea and they worked with me on it. And then they went on the hunt, the vampire hunt for the artist. And I was so fortunate that the artist that I really, really, really wanted of all the ones I was presented with as possibilities was Craig Marr, who's an incredible talent. I liked him because one, he could do vampires, but two, he could do very diverse characters. Modern decks, I strongly feel should be okay. If your deck is set in a modern setting, it should be racially diverse, and he had that in his repertoire. He could also do animals, which is very hard, and he could do full
I
scene.
bet
It is. And so think of the number of horses there are in tarot and all those poor artists. Anyway, all of this is just to say, so we collaborated. Now here's where the unfair distribution comes in. So I wrote again the scenes and we worked together. So I'm sort of like the director writer. Craig is the casting director, set designer, lighting director, cinematographer, special effects designer. Like everything else is the artist. And before getting into this, I thought, okay, so like I'll come up with a scene and he'll draw that. Like that's not what it is. It is a true collaboration. I'm thinking in a very limited way about these things, but a true artist, a visual artist, is thinking of how to present this in a vertical format in a really interesting way. And so things he just would improve. Just a quick example, I had written in the Two of Cups, the age-old problem of the human um, and vampire in love. And I had written that the human is offering his wrist to the male human is offering his wrist to a female vampire, and I had written that he is confident and she is nervous, and he very sensibly saw the problem with that, and like that's not how it works, and switched them. And so a lot of things he would switch or change, always for the better. And anything you don't like in that deck is my fault, and everything you like is Craig's fault. I could say, but that's how that works. If anyone has like a deck that they have in their heart, you don't have to learn how to be an artist. You will be paired with someone who's going to do 78. Oh, there's a number. 78 times better than you at the job. I don't know why I got that number, but it's 70 cards. Charles,
well, you guys did great work. That is a deck that is in my actual reading rotation when I read for other people all year round, not just this spooky season.
Right on.
Yeah, I think the art works for that. And there's a werewolf in there, so
I was afraid because werewolves are hard to do. I mean, think about how many movies with werewolves have done terrible werewolves.
Terrible werewolves. Yeah.
I think it helped that both Craig and I played White Wolf games in the 90s.
Same. Same. Maybe that's how you guys, actually created this correctly. You were playing all those hours of Masquerade. What was your go-to White Wolf game? Mine was always Mage and then Werewolf.
I always wanted to play Mage. I did not have any friends smart enough to want to play with me. That was the most complicated one. I played Vampire the Masquerade, and I tended to play. I was not a huge fan of the more LARPing style, but that's what was popular in my neighborhood. And so a lot of goths in the East Bay would get together at this one parking garage, and we were just weird for all for an afternoon. I didn't enjoy it as much because you had to be a little bit more yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't look like Cleopatra, as much, or it would take more budget for that to happen. So, but that's what I did, and I had really good times, and it introduced me to a lot of really good vampire fiction at that time because that was a meaty thing. I will also say about that one, if you're a vampire fan, the greatest book on the modern vampire fiction is a famous pagan author, Margot Adler. She wrote for pagans. She wrote
Drawing
Drawing Down
Down
the
the Moon.
Moon.
Yeah.
Yeah, incredible book. But her husband later in life passed away, and she responded to that by reading in a couple of years, like something like over 300 vampire novels.
Oh wow.
And she put together this theory of the modern vampire, which, to very quickly sum it up, is um, so someone like Angel from or Spike from Buffy the Vampire Slayer is a powerful being trying to be moral. They realize that they're dangerous and that they could destroy the world. Pardon me, burp. But they they're trying to use their powers for good, and that is the modern human being. Is that we realize we're dangerous. We're very dangerous for the planet and for other people, and but we want to, and we have desires, and we have hunger, and we have our shadow that is always there, and we're trying to be, I'm gonna say moral rather than good. I'm gonna say more. And that's her. She wrote an incredible book. Vampires Are Us. I don't know about that title, but vampire. And then that really was a strong foundation for Tarot of the Vampires.
I like that. John Beckett has been a guest on the show several times. John's got great writing out there. The Path of Paganism, Advanced Paganism. John's blog is fantastic. Under the Ancient Oaks. In case people won't go find him. Anyway, I bring up John just because he will occasionally do blog posts about the best vampire fiction out there and rating vampire stuff. John's very, very into vampires.
Right on. Yeah.
Yeah. Go, John.
Druids and vampires.
Druids and vampires. Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, let me look it up real quick. John, now that I remember, had a question he wanted me to ask you.
Moi.
It's great that it came up
John's
this way.
writing. I'm a big fan of his blog. Long time reader.
Yeah, first time
caller. Yeah.
All right, I gotta go to my post on Patreon real quick, and that one comment. There it is. Okay. All right, audio hiccup, tech issue. We're back. John asked. John says, glad to hear you'll be talking with Charles Harrington. I have the Tarot of the Vampires and I like it. 2 questions. Greedy, John, greedy. No. Question number 1. I'll ask you and give you a chance to answer. How hard was he trying to align his deck with the traditional Waite-Smith meanings versus being open to whatever meanings flowed from the images he wanted to create? That's a good question.
Interesting. This and I think, okay, and to make this useful for anyone out there who's got a themed deck inside of them, so if you want to create a deck in the English language, you're going to want it to be Rider-Waite-Smith aligned. It just, otherwise people will say, okay, it's a huge barrier to entry to not have it be Rider-Waite-Smith. However, whatever your theme is, what it ought to do, the annoying decks out there I find are like if you have a unicorn tarot and it's the Page of Wands is a young person holding a wand and there's a unicorn in the background, and so what Craig and I did is like, so your knowledge of vampires in this case, but so whatever theme that you future deck creators have in mind, your knowledge of that theme and the reader's knowledge of that theme should empower, like help them get to the answer. It should be useful in that way. It should it should work mechanically in that way. Like that. Think of like the card meanings as mechanics, and you're sort of piggybacking off of people's knowledge of the theme. So I think some people felt some of the cards were very untraditional. I think, and some cards are a little inspired by a particular unique version of the card that I saw once that like really stuck with me over the years. So, an example of that, the the Fey Tarot by Lo Scarabeo is this cute little fairy themed deck, and in it, the Two of Wands is the fairy um, who is looking at is they're sitting in a nest and wondering if they can fly, and they're nervous. And so I thought about that as a Two of Wands, and that's always stuck with me as part of the meaning, more than like looking at the globe and the horizon. And so for that one, I thought it was really cool idea to like the idea of when someone is testing their vampire powers, like this has just happened to you, and like what can I do? So the character is on top of a skyscraper, and they have these wings made out of like red energy, which is like blood magic in that
Yeah.
universe, that deck. And the camera, because there's a camera for each of these. Like if you think about it, like if this was a movie, the camera is situated in such a way that like to make your stomach drop a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so I um, wanted to stay on the Rider-Waite-Smith like plan and the track, but I wanted to use modern technique, like mechanical techniques or visual techniques, and then it's great to have an artist who's amazing at this to like create an emotional response for the reader that would help with this. Just as an example, something that annoys some people is that the backs are um, there's a rose and a lily, which is a theme in the deck of immortality and the mortals. So, vulnerability versus passion, blah, blah, blah. And you can tell when you have a reversed card, which a lot of readers
Yeah.
hate that because they want to not be expressed. Well, that is intentional, and maybe it's not a good idea, but the idea is when you lay out the cards and the lilies are upright, that is going to create a little bit of sense of vulnerability in the reader to like, oh no, I have a lot of reversals. Sometimes that's good. Some cards are better reversed, Ten of Swords, but it's like intentional to create those moments, uh, those sorts of ideas. And I think that it's important for like a deck to like be very, very Rider-Waite-Smith, but to take some risks and to think about what are your ideas to take this further? Because we have the Rider-Waite-Smith. So like
Mm-hmm.
there's the Buddhist adage like don't speak unless you can improve upon the silence. So like don't make a Page of Swords unless you can improve upon Pamela Coleman Smith. And I'm not saying I improve. Okay, that sounds arrogant as all heck. Like you have to have a new idea, not improve, a new idea. If does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. I
Okay.
like that actually. Um, yeah, I like that a lot. That's interesting how you approach it. I like the way you talked about the Two of Wands,
Yeah.
in particular, because that feeling of like wondering if they could fly,
Mhm.
I think captures more of what that card is supposed to be than the way it's been presented to us traditionally. I like that. Um, Next question from John. He's got two here.
Right on.
Oh, I clicked on the wrong button. Here we go. For a deck based on vampires, the artwork is mostly PG-13. Was this a direction from the publisher? What was he comfortable with, or just how it worked out? Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Great,
Yeah.
great question. So Llewellyn was very, very open, and they were. I was more worried that things would be too much for them, and I would like suggest an idea, and they would be just very open. I think sometimes in the world of witches, you hear people say things like they don't want to publish with Llewellyn because they're sure that Llewellyn will dumb down their idea and resanitize. And like that could not
Mm.
have been further from the truth. It's a stereotype. I think I know where it came from. It came from whatever, but I will just say that
Right.
that's not the case. And that wasn't the case. My editor pushed for more. And as a matter of fact, there are several cards that did get more grisly and spooky. So, okay. I remember at a certain point in the deck process, emailing Craig and just saying like, so we're going along. What do you feel like isn't here? and he said, we've got these beautiful human, and like in modern vampire fiction, most people are these like stunning creatures, like something out of Underworld, right? And like they
Mm-hmm.
mostly pass for humans because they're predators. But he's like, I feel like we've got that down. I think we need more monsters. And so then a bunch of cards changed. The devil changed from what was my like cheesy like motorcycle gang Vlad Tepes became this like bat creature that was demonic as heck. And the Nine of Swords changed from just sort of a dude to like this dream vampire monster creature. And okay, the biggest change that went away from the PG-13 is my original Nine of Cups. I felt like there needed to be some tribute to Twilight in there. I'm not a fan. I'm not a hater. You know what I mean? I'm neither on neither side of
Uh-huh.
that. It is a thing that exists and introduced a lot of people to vampire fiction. But I had Nine of Cups be Vampire Prom, and I realized kind of luckily that we went in numerical order. So like luckily at the end I was like, oh, this is twee. So that became Elizabeth Bathory, the blood countess
Yeah.
bathing in a bathtub full, or spa full of blood, with her hair looking all like crazy and snaky. And I was remembering like that's a true vampire's Nine of Cups, is they're bathing in blood. And if you're a vampire fan, you know, Elizabeth Bathory is a historical woman who was accused of vampirism and murdering virgins and bathing in their blood to stay young forever. So,
Yep.
uh,
Wonderful lady.
yeah, I think that the challenge also is you have a moment. So like in a vampire movie, there's things they can do, but in a card you have a single moment. My biggest problem, I'd say, was the fangs.
Mm.
Um, Craig was really good at making the teeth look like there's something wrong with their teeth, like there's something off. But like most of the time in movies today, people don't, or shows or novels, people don't just walk around with fangs, you know, like they kind of usually like slip down, or they morph a little bit
Hmm.
in modern, you know, in Bram Stoker's Dracula, he just had sharp canines. That was it. Like today we've given them these crazy like fangs
Hmm.
that they can't just talk like this, you know. So it's something that we worked on. So I think some people would have liked more blood. Um, I heard a review that there was no blood, and I like panicked and I looked and like I think there's blood. I
There's
think
blood.
that there's
Yeah.
blood. Um, it okay. I will say knowing that they also had to be used as a divination tool did make
Hmm.
me pull back a little bit on how horrific things are. There are some great horror decks that are really lean all the way into like really grisly things, like showing like suicides or self-harm. And
Hmm.
actually, that was one of my big. There's a lot of self-harm in vampire stuff, and I wanted to be very cautious about that because the demographic who reads tarot is the demographic most likely to commit self-harm. And so people are reading about their boyfriends and their jobs and things like that. And I wanted to convey the empowerment of being a vampire, like how great it is to be this immortal creature with all of these abilities, more so than like blood and guts. Does that make
Mm.
sense?
That makes perfect sense. Yeah, I like that. I like that you considered, what's going to happen, especially in the psyche of those who are handling the cards too.
Mm.
That's very thoughtful. I appreciate it.
There was I showed the deck to my friend Benebell Wen, who people know if you know tarot, and there was a card that had police officers pointing guns at a vampire on it, and she was like, "Warning!" Like this is a lot going on right now, and that changed to some bodyguards instead of
Hmm.
police officers. It made the deck card better.
Love that. Shout out Benebell. Benebell is awesome. Very, very awesome. I've told people Benebell is one of the most hardest working individuals in the realm of the occult and tarot, and now into exploring
Mm.
like Taoism and so on. Mystic Taoism, or maybe that's not even a necessary qualifier. Um, but what I often say is Benebell, and there are others like Benebell, but Benebell in particular is, I hope, is going to make people like Crowley and such unnecessary to future generations.
A friend of mine said that her deck, that's Spirit Keepers Tarot, upgraded the software of the tarot, and I think
Mm.
that's an app. He's an author, Durgadas, Alan Duriel. Um, I think that's apt, and I think that Benebell goes like really into the she will read the text from the 1800s, and
Yes.
the about and she'll present about magnetism, and but also she'll um, write an entire legal agreement for tarot readers to use to protect themselves if they read about health readings, that kind of thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
she's a very giving, amazing person,
She's a
who takes
gift.
herself very seriously and but
Yes.
generously. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes. And the book of maps, the book that she wrote that goes along with the Spirit Keeper Tarot, um, she takes such great care and detail going into all these historic places and spiritual sites and liminal places and spirits and gods and goddesses and ancestors. And I mean, I that book almost itself is a reverent holy text.
It is a sacred text. It
It
is like
is.
it is a sacred text. That's not overblown to say. And I'm looking at it, it's right over here.
Yeah,
It's a
mine's right there.
powerful. It is something else. And okay, what I'll say is that and holistic tarot, it feels like an initiation process. If you wanted to have a tarot initiation experience, Benebell's work, holistic tarot, or which is her most accessible version of this, but
Right.
also if you can get the Spirit Keepers tarot or the Book of Maps, is an initiation process.
I agree. And speaking of books,
Mhm.
uh,
Oh yes,
we did say we'd get into it. We're going to get into it.
yes.
The Tarot and Oracle card reading for Dummies, a Wiley brand. Um, so when I think of for Dummies books, I always think of like I don't know, like knitting, cooking, um, just general
That's
things,
fair.
right? Did but they did do something on tarot once before, didn't they?
They had, I've not read it, but they had 20 years ago a tarot for dummies. They've had a lot of things. They had I've seen, so there was tarot there was the for dummies, and there was also the Complete Idiot's Guide, and sometimes those two things get messed up in my head. But there was like near-death experiences for dummies, reincarnation for dummies, and I feel like those two should be sold as a set. But no, they've done a lot of. Okay, I remember when I was contacted by them um, to do the book, and when I was thinking about it, I asked like, like, what is, what are your limitations on how I can talk about tarot? Is it, I mean, can we get into prediction and spirituality? And they're like, well, we have Catholicism for dummies, we have Judaism for dummies. So yeah, you're allowed to talk about, we have a modern witchcraft for dummies just came out this year as well. It came out like a month before mine.
Hmm.
They're not afraid of magic and the
Nice.
supernatural as a topic. And I think, okay, when I was in the 90s, you mentioned earlier, like there was DOS for dummies and Windows for dummies, and they were
Mm-hmm.
just, there was no negativity there. It was just that none of us knew how to use DOS.
Right.
So
Well,
it was
I
like,
built my
yeah.
first website with WordPress for Dummies. I
Okay,
still have it.
it's my favorite. I used container gardening for dummies, like I used
Yeah.
wine for dummies. But something happened in the early 2000s. Everyone decided to make fun of the brand. It was a good way to have a gimmick. One of my favorite versions of that in one of the Child's like Bride of Chucky. Tiffany, I think that's her name, the Jennifer Tilly character is reading
Yeah.
Voodoo for Dummies as she tries to summon him back to life, and it became a gimmick, and that's why you got a lot of things called like the Smart Girl's Guide to Business or the Smart Girl's Guide to da da da,
Right.
But it's they're the for Dummies idea is that you don't need any additional information and to read this book, and every single section within this book does not imagine that you've read any other part of the book. It's just needs to be presented in a friendly, straightforward way. And I'm very fortunate. My day job was in internal communications, so I'm very used to writing in a second person, just explaining simply how to do things in a friendly way. But it's supposed to be the for dummies model is this is like if your smart friend is explaining, your smart friend who's an expert on whatever it is, container gardening, is just explaining it to you each step of the way. And every part of the book, it was an incredible process for this reason of like working with their editors. When I've written things before, you write manuscript and then you send it off, and then they send you notes, right? And this was different. I sent chapter by chapter. I sent them, and we worked on it together to get that format going so that every section is thought through and how it connects to the rest of the book, and so that everything is useful and doesn't imagine like, so if there's any information in a later chapter that references tarot history, well, they probably didn't read the history. Well, they might not have read the history chapter. So like it has to show them where to go for that. So it's a very simple, user-friendly way to learn any skill. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How did you end up being the one writing this book?
They had originally contacted, so my editor at Llewellyn for Tarot of the Vampires and a few other things is Barbara Moore, who has written more tarot guidebooks than any other person out there. Really, it's a true fact. I looked it up once.
Yeah.
She is, and I don't think Barbara Moore gets credit enough for her impact on tarot.
That's probably right.
The reason when I was young, we had the little white book, and it had a sentence for every tarot card, and
yes,
and it was this tiny little pamphlet. And Barbara Moore, I think it's pretty fair to say, is one of the main reasons that tarot guidebooks are what they are today, because she has a real strong point of view about how to make these useful. It helps that she's a steampunk, and they,
yeah.
have
Fun
that.
little sidebar, real
Oh, yeah.
quick. Just because you said steampunk
Mm-hmm.
made me remember. I met Barbara. Barbara's a wonderful person. I met Barbara at TarotCon in Dallas, Texas, in 2014. It was an event that used to be run by Marcus Katz and Tally Goodwin for the Tarot Professionals Association. And I had a copy of the steampunk deck with me that she did with Ali Fell.
Mm-hmm.
And I, in the hallway, I was just going somewhere. She was walking towards me, and I was hanging out with a couple of friends at the event. And I stopped and said, "Barbara, my name's Lonnie. It's so nice to meet you. I'm one of the people that does stuff for the organization, yada, yada, yada." She's like being all polite. "Oh, it's great to meet you." So on. And I'm thinking she doesn't know who I am. And and I said, "I have my steampunk deck with me. Would you sign it, please?" And she goes, "Oh, absolutely." And I said, handed her a pen, and I got a straight face, and I said, "All 78 cards, please." And she stopped and looked at me, and to her credit, she went, "Well, if that's what you want." And I'm like, I'm kidding. But, yeah. Anyway, so that was my fun little. I met Barbara Moore in steampunk deck in
Yeah,
moment.
but she has that steampunk sensibility of like looking at a contraption and being like, well, how could this work better? And I think that she looked at tarot writing and saw that a lot of tarot readers play hide the ball, or they're inconsistent. Just an example, like if there's a symbol on your card, the guidebook should probably explain why it's there, and not like expect you to like now become an expert in Kabbalah to understand that, or like it's fine to have these things, but explain, like, that's just an example. And also like she also looked at how people, and this comes into Tarot for Dummies, she looked at how people read tarot books, and what people don't do is start on page 1 and work their way through to the end. And so if a person's doing a reading and the past is the Queen of Cups, they don't look up. If there's a page on page 43 explains queens and page 71 explains cups, they won't know that because page 125 explains the Queen of Cups, and so that's what they're reading. So page 125 needs to explain the intersection of queens and cups as well. And a critique I got was that, like, if you did read the book cover to cover, like the meanings cover to cover, sometimes it's like, okay, we like cups mean this, fours mean this. Like, well, most people don't read it that way. So that's okay, blah blah blah. How did I get the cup? Wiley had been working with Barbara, and of course, because she's like the biggest name, I'd say, in tarot publishing, on this idea, and she worked with them on this outline, and it was moving right along. And then there was a delay for like whatever reason. And when they kind of came back and they had the opening in their schedule to write the book, it was not open for Barbara. She was on working on other things. So, and she thought that I would be a fit for this. So I'm forever eternally grateful to her for this. She pointed them to me, and so I got to have a call with Wiley. And I thought I was like having a pitch call with them where I was going to have to like really sell them this idea, but they're like, Barbara's an acquisitions editor, and she told us that you're the person. So well, okay, I did well on the call, and it didn't need to be more. I thought I was going to send them like all kinds of samples of writing, but
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's how I got the book. Serendipitous.
Love it. Love that. Yeah. I mean, I didn't know it was out there. I saw Benebell write a review of this book, and she raved about it in a way that only Benebell can. You know,
it was very generous.
It made me want to have the book. And then I realized I kept recognizing your name. I thought, why do I know this name? Where is it?
This fussy name.
So I go to my bookshelves and I'm looking like, what do I have instead of Google? That shows my age. I think, look at the books first. And that's when I realized you were part of one of my favorite tarot decks.
Woo-hoo!
And then I go searching for you in podcast land, like, has he been interviewed anywhere before? And then I heard you on Witchlit, and then I'm like, I have to interview this man.
Thank you so much. Benebell's very kind, and anyway.
Yeah. So that's how it all led you to being on Weird Web Radio. I appreciate you being here. We did mention in the beginning you are part of a witchcraft tradition. Mm-hmm. How did you get into witchcraft? Well, how did that start? Was it concurrent with tarot?
Yeah, so tarot is a gateway drug for a lot of people.
Sure is.
I was a weird kid in high school, but I went to a Baptist junior high, which I don't recommend.
No, sounds awful.
So I loved. Okay, I can never do a story from beginning to end, but
that's fine.
I've been obsessed with witches since I was like 3 or 4, like obsessed, and like I was a witch for Halloween when I was 3 or something, always. And I knew that there were real witches because when I was a little kid, there was a talk show in the old days called the Joan Rivers Show, and she had Laurie Cabot on, and she had and a lot of people from Laurie Cabot's tradition. So like all these people in these fabulous like black and purple cloaks were like real witches. So I remember being like, oh, they exist, and that's cool, but I'm not allowed to be one. I'm Christian. Pardon me. And
game over. Yeah.
Well, but I'm glad they exist, and I think they're fine, but like I can't do that. So, but tarot was something you could do, and I read tarot in high school because I wanted to be the Oracle of Delphi, and I wanted to see the future, and I always had my cards on me. I was that annoying goth kid who had like, do you want to read it? Like in class. And I had the Aquarian, and actually for a while it was the Thoth tarot that I kept in a Ziploc bag.
Ziploc bag.
Yeah, I didn't have a proper pouch. So no, it was, but anyway, blah, blah, blah. So if you're a tarot person, you're kind of adjacent to all the witch people. And, like slowly but surely, I came to feel that the more I understood about witchcraft, reading Starhawk and a few other people, probably the two most popular authors at my time were Silver Ravenwolf's To Ride a Silver Broomstick, which say what you will, I like the cover. And I thought that it was that's kind of what I wanted to be. And then what is it? Scott Cunningham, Wicca for the Solitary Practitioner, because like on the one shelf at Barnes and Noble, those were but what I read first though was Buckland's Blue Book, the Big Blue Book, Witchcraft. And so I was 16. I wasn't allowing myself to be a witch, but I like read that cover to cover, and I figured out what my name would be and numerologically and runes. And so it took a long time for me to be comfortable enough to self-dedicate. And then luckily, after a few years after that, in my area, in the San Francisco Bay Area, there was the Order of the Sacred Grove, which is a goddess-oriented witchcraft tradition, and I personally would describe myself as Wiccan, but I know some people don't love that word. Um, and I've been in the same tradition ever since. My coven meets every Friday, and yeah, it's been wonderful. I got to be a
Every
witch
Friday. That's
every
cool.
Friday. Like,
That's
Christians meet every Sunday morning, but like, who wants to get up that early on a Sunday?
yeah. No, I like that sound. Is the order that you've part of, is that just a local thing,
We're
or are
just
you
in the
guys?
Bay Area, so we have chapters. We have covens in Sonoma, El Dorado Hills, and Contra Costa County, and so we're happy to but we get people who are interested elsewhere, and we just point them to the good thing about when you're doing this, you meet all the other covens that are open, so we just helpfully point people to for yeah, reclaiming is great in this area as well for if anyone is seeking.
Excellent. Okay, cool. Um, I think we're getting to a point where we can start getting wrapping up the regular portion of the show.
Mhm.
Looking at the times, is there anything that you wanted to get into, or that you're hoping maybe I would ask?
It occurs to me something I always, so it's tarot and oracle card reading for dummies, and
That is true.
I neglect the oracle part often as I think oracle cards have a bad rap in the community, and we make memes about them and we make fun of them.
Hmm.
They are valid, and it was
Do
really
you
fun.
use oracle cards?
I do use oracle cards. I love oracle
Okay.
cards, but you kind of have to know how you're using them, and you have to use them a little differently. And so I really try to get into that because like when the Wiley asked me to write the book, it had the title already, Tarot and Oracle Card Reading for Dummies, and so that made me, like think like the way that I read oracle cards is way 97.5% of all people read oracle cards is you pull a single card, you open the book, you read the single paragraph of text, you close the book, and you forget the reading. And that is how I feel a lot of people read oracle cards. But there's a lot out there, and I think what I wanted to get into in that part of the book is understanding bias. Bias is a huge part of the book, but oracle decks have a stronger sense of bias in that we've mapped kind of all of human identity onto the tarot. But if you're coming up with, so I talk about in the book, I have a very empowering goddess oracle that I love to read with, and it's kind of this like, like modern girl kind of rah rah kind of approach to the goddess. And um, to understand the bias of that deck, you have to like I went through card by card and like wrote down like what is the message of every single card, and then you have to look for what's not there. So just as an example, none of the cards say doubt yourself.
Mm.
None of the cards say give up. None of the cards say some of these things, and uh, so you have to be aware of that bias if you're using an Oracle deck. So like it's totally
Hmm.
fine to use it. It's a valid. It does not invalidate the tool. It just means that it doesn't. It has. It's like if you're going to a certain friend, there's certain things they're not going to tell you.
Hmm.
And like there's times in my life I've been wrong. I should have doubted myself, right? And so something about I did recently the guidebook for the Odyssey Oracle for Lo Scarabeo, and the Odyssey, every single image is from the Odyssey, so there's a strong bias there. They're like, for example, just we said, don't give up. Odysseus never gives
Hmm.
up. Well, sometimes in life you need to give up, So I had to figure out where that could be, and the answer is it was
Yeah.
the Land of the Lotus Eaters card. But anyway, so two things, like so one, understand the bias, but two, um, okay, I talked about how I wrote Tarot of the Vampires. That's one way to create a deck. But sometimes when I work Lo Scarabeo, what happens is they send you an art file. The cards are all done. These are the
Oh,
images, and now you name the cards and you write the meaning. And
you named
what
them.
you name them, and that's fun. That's a flavorful thing to get to do, and you get to write really self-indulgent things like Clash of the Olympians. Um, but okay, so with that, there are so many techniques that you use that we teach if we go to tarot conferences that to interrogate a card to find out its meaning, and all of those techniques apply to when you're looking at an oracle card for the first time because no one else, no one has written the guidebook yet. um, the techniques that the guidebook author uses to find meaning in the card are something that you, the reader, can use to find meaning. I think because Oracle decks are so on rails, where like, here's the paragraph of what this card means, that people just sort of stop there. But like all of these like questions you can ask yourself, how did this person get here? What happened before? What happened after? Why is that here? All of these things that the guidebook author has to use, like you can use in an oracle card reading. You can blend them together. You can use spreads. And I feel like people would love oracle cards more if they took it further and kind of out of the on rails, just read the paragraph and put it away method.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've not leaned into oracle cards much.
Hmm.
Um, I have one called the Magic and Mediums Oracle. I believe that's
Hmm.
the name of it. I really use that for just getting out of my rut of
Hmm.
routine to think what magical pursuit maybe I should experiment with, and that's fun. That's what I use that for. I have no clue what the book says.
Absolutely. Well, like I think I love the
um,
arcane bullshit oracle for this, where I think it was designed to make fun of oracle cards in that like,
yeah.
how can this mean anything? And then oracle readers are like, yeah, like hold my beer, you know?
Right. Yeah. And I have the Everyday Witch Oracle because I'm obsessed with the art of Elizabeth Alba. That's why.
Excellent deck. Yeah. I
Yeah.
love a good pointy hat witch
Yeah.
universe of any
Same.
kind.
That's right. Me too. Um, but that's really it. I guess before we do go on,
Mhm.
we've talked about events a lot. Is there a technique you've picked up at an event over the years that you really, really loved that stood out?
Events. Yeah. Here's my couple quick and dirty event guides for people. Do you mean like how to as that particular skill of reading at events
Yeah.
kind of
Well,
thing? Yeah.
like as an example, that same TarotCon event in Dallas,
Hmm.
and a little workshop I did with Kim Huggins.
Hmm.
Kim's technique, and there's pictures of us online all doing this somewhere, was to take the deck and just throw it in the air and then read them, the ones facing up. And of course, the importance being the ones closer to you. And it's a lot of fun. It sucks picking it all up, but
That part would be hard at a
yeah,
big event.
yeah, but that was a lot of fun.
I think, well, okay, so but like more like I think that a lot of at places like that. So it's like as opposed so more like like a like a pagan
Yeah, going to like
gathering.
conventions and
Yes,
conferences and
yes,
stuff like
okay,
that,
yes, okay.
workshops,
The
something you picked up
greatest
there.
the greatest thing. So I just was at the Northwest Tarot Symposium and it was really fun. But the good thing to do is at the at any pagan event, after it's all said and done, you go to the hotel bar at 1 and there's people and you give reading and do readings there and because we've been percolating all day and thinking and being technical and that, but so like this is where it gets put to use and
Hmm.
yeah, there's uh I think that like when tarot readers get together, like we do get super playful. A bunch of tarot readers got together after tarot author Brian Williams and decorator artist Brian Williams funeral and canonized him at a pizza restaurant in Berkeley. And now he's Santo Briano, and they wrote his saint thing. And I
Ah,
visit it, and I
I love that.
I make a pilgrimage on Easter sometimes to the church where he was his funeral was with the Jupiter Tavern in Berkeley, a holy site, and then Mount Tamalpais where his ashes are, or some of his ashes are. And it's like that came out of just weirdos getting together and having fun. You come up with a lot of spreads at these events.
Hmm.
But you asked like, is there something in particular that came out of that? Oh yes, okay. One of the things that makes a better tarot reader that absolutely came out of these things is when you're at one of these events, everyone there is a tarot reader, or
Hmm.
weird or mystical or has seen a tarot deck. So if I'm reading for you and I pull out the Two of Wands and I put that down, whatever I'm saying, you've already interpreted the Two of Wands a
That's
little
true.
bit. And maybe I can turn the corner, but like something's already happened for you. So if you're reading for
Hmm.
other people, especially at these events, the, kind of a cool technique. that will make you a better reader, I promise, is you pull the cards and do not show them to the querent. You do not name them. You do not get into the symbolism of, okay, notice that he has a blue hat, like none of that. And you give the reading to the person without any of that, because a way that we get off track in a reading is we get into the minutia and they're like, okay, well, so cups are emotions, and then this card is related to Scorpio, and you can see it now. Scorpio, if you think about it, and like now we're off track, right? And like to stay in flow, you stay in flow in a huge way. It makes readings faster and very direct, because I'm not pointing at, we're not both looking at the table. I'm looking at you, and I'm just going to talk to you about what the Two of Wands means. It's just like there's an opportunity. You are desiring to reach beyond. There's something kind of scary, but I think you should go for it. And that is a totally different energy among people, as opposed to in your future, the Two of Wands. That means traditionally, all of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I like that. That's an interesting um that's an interesting technique, because when I do readings for people, I do a lot of them at distance through email. I type them all out in PDFs with pictures of the spread and everything, and I go back and forth on this over time. Sometimes I will put like, you have this card, and then go into my explanation. Other times I will just write a story based on what it is. I write out the reading without telling you what card I'm talking about. I kind of wonder now over time which ones were landing the best,
I think Barbara Moore kind of had a lot to say about this, and has a lot. She's still with us. Has a lot to say, but one of the things is two things happen. So sometimes we feel like we're teaching everyone tarot, and like most people didn't come to learn tarot. Like Aquarius kind of thing. But like, but a lot of us want to like, oh well, cups mean this. But the other thing is, it's a way of being like, I'm not the one telling you he's not coming back to you. It's the card. The card means he's not coming back. It's the Eight of Cups, and that means you got to move on, honey. And that's like a way of trying to like pass the buck to, I guess, Pamela Coleman Smith and Arthur Waite, like to it's their fault, but instead to be the oracle, to be the voice of the divine, is what they came for. They came for that. Is one way. Try it, and if you hate it, don't do it.
Yeah. That should be the name of this episode.
Try it.
It's the Eight of Cups. Gotta move on, honey.
Yeah. Oh, one wacky, we're coming for landing. One wacky fun fact that some people enjoy.
Yes, absolutely.
Tarot and Oracle card reading for Dummies, and Tarot of the Vampires, and everything else I've ever written is written on Elvira's desk.
The Elvira?
The Elvira. Cassandra Peterson had a huge auction a few years ago. She kind of decided to move on from the role, and she has the brand, but she's not appearing as her anymore. And she auctioned off things like many of her costumes and props and different memorabilia. But one of the things was this like 1800s big, giant, heavy, creepy kind of. It looks like what Elvira's desk would be in a way. And in the promotional video for the auction, she said she hoped that some of the creativity was still hidden in the drawers. And I've got to say, yes, it was. But two, Cassandra's hustle energy. If you've ever written her autobiography is amazing, but her hustle energy is in the desk, and it is in my writing for that. If you believe in whatever that would be, the technical word for whatever that mystical concept would be, that is in the book as well. So probably my biggest hero as a little kid. I'm very excited to say I have her desk.
I love that. How cool. Yeah. All right. And if that comes up on a quiz sometime, you guys will now win. You'll win.
Yeah.
Okay. How can people find you? Where do you want them to find you?
Well, I guess I am bad about social media. I've started posting on TikTok, and then I kind of stopped. I'm maybe going to get back into it. At Tarot Quest on TikTok.
Tarot
is a
Quest.
thing.
I have to give you a follow. I didn't know you were there.
Yes, yeah. And I'm on Facebook as Charles Harrington, and as Lonnie can attest, I'm not the best at noticing if people have friended me. But just if you want, find me there, TikTok, or there's also a Tarot Quest on Twitter. Just find me, and I'd be happy to pull a card for you from Tarot of the Vampires, or Kibbutz about tarot, or whatever, Kvetch about tarot, whichever Yiddishism you would like.
Nice. All right. Well, Charles, thank you so much for being here. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much.
Genuinely
such a
lot of fun.
Thank you.
And for everyone listening, thank you as well for being here. And please, if you enjoyed the episode, please go spread it and tell all your friends and family. Go out and check out the book Tarot and Oracle Card Reading for Dummies, and anything else that Charles has been a part of. If you would like to hear the rest of this conversation, we're going to take the rest of it over to Patreon. That is at patreon.com/weirdwebradio, or you go to weirdwebradio.com and click join the membership. Thank you for listening, and stay weird out there, my friends. And it's bonus audio time.
All right.
Charles, are you ready?
I am so ready, and I'm weird.
And you're weird.
I'm
Same.
Weird. Get weird.
The first question is always the same around here for first-time guests. What famous person's resting place do you most want to visit, and why?
Oh, yes. So I'm very fortunate. I think a lot of people, there's people who are alive who I would like to visit at some point. But, I feel like,
same.
Yeah, I feel like.
Do you want to hear how they just answered that question? What famous person's resting place would you most like to visit? That and many others, including what they think about the afterlife, what they may or may not do in cemeteries, what are their traditions and magical practices that have to do with the dead, folklore that surrounds their homes, and so much more, available for only $5. $5 a month. Even if I make more than one episode in a month, it's still just $5 a month at patreon.com/weirdwebradio, or go to weirdwebradio.com and click join the membership. You can find me on Instagram at weirdwebradio. You can find me on Facebook as Weird Web Radio, or come join the new, fun, and exciting Weird Web Radio Facebook group. Thank you again for being here. Stay weird out there, my friends.